93. So there you are, the IBO Intercontinental Featherweight Championship. Scott Harrison against Tom Boom Boom Johnson, 12 3-minute rounds. So here's the champion then. This is Scott Harrison. He won this title, of course, beating the South African Smith O'Doom on points just last year. And in the meantime, also became Commonwealth champion, beating Pat Mullings. That was in Glasgow on points over 12 rounds in a cracking fight.
It was a good fight. I mean, Patrick Mullings isn't the most consistent of fighters in the ring, but Harrison did a very good job that night. He was very professional, went about his work well, and he did the same, of course, in his next fight when he fought Patterson 3 months ago in Madison Square Garden. Wasn't overwhelmed by the atmosphere, really enjoyed it and did a good job.
Well, shortly going over to our MC, Mr. Michael Buffer, who's going to get proceedings on the road, and that's coming up very, very shortly as these boxers prowl the ring, waiting for their opportunity to unleash their own brand of fury.
The other thing, Steve, is it's actually his birthday today, isn't it? Boom Boom Johnson.
I believe it is, yes.
I wonder what sort of present he's going to get. It's going to be a pleasant surprise or an unpleasant surprise.
We don't always get what we want in life, do we?
No.
36 years of age, as you can see, they're 14 years the senior of young Scott Harrison, and that is a very telling age, isn't it, at this weight?
It is. I mean, it's incredible that he has carried on that for that long, and he's also been involved in some quite heavy fights along the road, so it does take its toll, and it does mean that he has got some wear and tear on it.
Yes, born on the 15th of July, 1964. And here are the rules of the IBO, 10-point scoring system, of course. The must system, the 3 knockdown rule.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to London Arena, where tonight Panics Promotions and Main Events in association with Sports Network present an evening of professional boxing for your entertainment. All bouts tonight are sanctioned by the BBBC Chairman Lord Brooks of Tremorfa, Secretary Simon Locke, timekeeper for this bout Peter McCann. This contest is also sanctioned by the IBO President Ed Levine, supervisor at ringside from Scotland Gerald Willard. The 3 judges assigned to score this bout on the 10-point must system will be Roy Francis from England, Terry O'Connor from England, and Michael Pernick from the United States, and with the bell rings, your referee in charge of the action, Paul Thomas. And now, ladies and gentlemen, 12 rounds of boxing for the IBO Intercontinental Featherweight Championship. Introducing first, fighting out of the blue corner, wearing blue trimmed with white, his weight 8 stone, 13 pounds, 14 ounces. He brings a professional record to the ring consisting of 49 victories, including 27 knockouts, with 7 losses and 2 draws. He comes to us from Evansville, Indiana, USA. Please welcome the challenger and former world champion, Tom Boom Boom Johnson. And his opponent across the ring, fighting out over the red corner, wearing black, trimmed with gold, his weight 8 stone, 13 3/4 pounds. His professional record, 10 victories, including 3 knockouts to his credit, with only 1 defeat and 1 draw. Ladies and gentlemen, the pride of Glasgow, Scotland, the reigning and defending IBO Intercontinental Featherweight Champion, Scott Harrison.
Would it be significant, Kevin, that there are 2 out of the 3 judges are from Britain?
I don't think it'll be significant. I think Scott's the kind of precise boxer that if he's winning the round, you know he's won the round. There's not too much error of judgment there. So I don't think there's going to be a problem in that sense.
Right. And our referee, of course, also from Britain for the Midlands, in fact, Mr. Paul Thomas. And this, of course, as I've said before, scheduled for 12 3-minute rounds. And round 1 about to commence.
Second down, first round.
Right, here we go then. And Tom Johnson in the blue trunks, a very capable champion in his day, of course, but up against, as Kevin has made the point very well, an improving young fighter who's only had 12 fights. But once again, you know, Kevin, it's a point to really be addressed. Some fighters get very superstitious. Fight number 13 here for Harrison.
Yeah, I don't think he's the type of fighter who's professional enough not to worry about that too much. But at the same time, you know, 13 is a strange number for fighters, for anybody. So maybe it is there in the back of his mind. I think he'll just want to settle himself down and get into his rhythm quickly and put that away at the back of his mind.
And a good start already here for Harrison, getting that lovely left hand of his working exceptionally well. Already now it's pushed back the head of Johnson on 2 occasions. And that will be the secret here, because, as we all know, Harrison does like to do all of his work behind the left hand.
Yeah, he'll try, I think, to establish the sort of pattern of the fight very early, and probably try and dishearten Johnson as well. And I think if he performs in the first few rounds the way he did in his last fight, that could happen.
So very nice to see Harrison taking the fight here to the former IBF champion. And so far, Johnson, although we don't expect a fast start from Johnson anyway, he normally takes 3 or 4 rounds to get himself up to steam.
Also, I think as you get older, it takes even longer, and it can be a lot harder as well to actually do that.
Absolutely right. These super featherweights, of course, they weigh 9 stone 6 maximum. And it sits between, of course, the featherweights and the lightweights. Of course, Britain's first ever world super featherweight champion, if I remember rightly, Cornelius Boza Edwards, the Ugandan who was based in Britain.
Yeah.
And a cracking puncher, of course, in his time.
He was a lovely fighter. I mean, perhaps didn't get quite the recognition he deserved. Amongst fight fans in Britain, he was well appreciated. And doing very well, I think, in the States now as a trainer.
In Las Vegas, that's right. So a good start then here for Harrison with 40 seconds to go in the opening session. There's not been a great deal, I don't think, from Tom Johnson to start with. And of course age has got a varying effect on different people, quite naturally. The first thing, of course, to go is the timing.
Yes, there's always, I mean, Johnson, I'm sure, is thinking exactly the same as he did when he first started fighting, but it's putting those thoughts into motion, and the reactions are bound to be slower, even by the millisecond, and that can cost you in a fight.
That's right, and it was always that millisecond, of course. The difference between winning and losing 10 years ago is now, of course, the reason for your loss.
Yeah, yeah. It's a very sort of sad thing to see sometimes as well with fighters. I mean, I'm not suggesting Thompson is at that stage, but they lose it very quickly.
Good start then, we think, for Scott Harrison. Would you disagree with that, Kev?
No, I think it was a comfortable start from Scott. He did pretty much what he wanted to do. He looked in control, and Johnson never really got into any kind of rhythm. He was having to cope with what Scott was throwing.
There you are. So Mick Williamson, then the cutsman, Billy Nelson on the outside on the left there. And of course, Dad, Peter Harrison, the main corner man. Mick Williamson, of course, Britain's premier cutsman, and he's the man to have. If you've ever got a problem, turn to Mick Williamson. If he can't handle it, nobody can. Yeah. And there, of course, is Al Gavin, a very experienced American second, the main man.
Well, Johnson's got a good corner, but he's also got a wealth of experience himself, so you know he's been through this so many times.
Absolutely. Fight number 58, by the way, for Johnson. Sorry, 59 for Johnson. Had 58 already, and a very, very good record. He's won 49, lost 7, drawn 2, and stopped 27 along the way. And for the record, Harrison's won 10, lost 1, drawn 1. But and this is his problem. He's only stopped 3.
Yeah, I mean he's not noted as a puncher. He is more of a technician. So you're not likely to see an explosive finish from him. But by the same token, you know, sometimes as fighters progress, they get a bit more confident with their punches. They let punches go that they wouldn't have let go in their early fights, and maybe, you never know, you know, he might have something there, but the evidence suggests he's not a puncher. He's more of a technician and a tactical fighter.
Right, Johnson will undoubtedly warm up slightly now since that very slow first round for him. And there's a very good chance he could actually match Scott Harrison, at least up to the halfway point. But, you know, thereafter, you've got to imagine a 36-year-old man at this weight, which is old for super featherweights anyway, Kev, isn't it?
Yeah, it is old. And I mean, I'm sure he's wise enough and experienced enough to know, you know, he's at this stage now where he desperately needs some kind of big win. And at the moment, a win over somebody up-and-coming like Harrison would be a big win for him.
Well, Johnson undoubtedly busier here in the second than he was in the first, which, of course, wouldn't have taken a great deal, let's face it. Harrison, well, hasn't got everything his own way at the moment, Kevin.
No, he's not pressurising Johnson as much as maybe he should do. And I think if he did pressurise him more, some cracks might start to appear.
Yes, that's a very good analysis. It's just the kind of thing that Johnson wants to avoid, is pressure from a younger, hungrier fighter, which of course Harrison is. And at the moment, Harrison looks like he's actually playing into Johnson's hands. Do you think there's a slight touch of being overawed at facing a man of Johnson's quality?
I'm not sure if he's overawed. I think he maybe hasn't got the kind of either the game plan or the kind of skills to trouble Johnson early on. You know, if you've got somebody like Hamid in front of you, it's a totally different ball game. I think Johnson is much more comfortable with somebody like Harrison. But by the same token, you know, Harrison was scoring in the first round, although in this round Johnson looks a lot more comfortable, and he doesn't seem to be particularly perturbed by it.
That's right, and of course one thing that Scott doesn't have, that other fighters in the past have had, is that massive punch to really gain the respect of the opponent. And that's going to be a major downfall for him.
It is a major downfall, and that's exactly what Hamid, as we know, has got. You know, he's always got that in the locker room, no matter how things are going. If the fight's going against him, he knows he's capable of taking anybody out in the division. Well, that's not going to be the case with Harrison. So he's really got to go about winning in different ways.
That's right, he's going to have to work very hard here for every single point. And this is not a bad round at the moment for Johnson. And he'll be feeling very comfortable after this second round, won't he?
I think he will. I mean, after the first round, the one thing he didn't want to be was on the back foot again in the second. Now he's managed to stop that, and it's much more even, so I think he'll feel more comfortable.
Absolutely. So, possibly level now, with 2 rounds under the belt, a round apiece. It was a reasonably quiet round once again as far as blistering punches landed, but Johnson seemed to be in control in the second, didn't he?
Yeah, there were no fireworks, but Johnson looked happier. I mean, you could tell by the way he was moving around the ring. He felt more comfortable. He felt as though he was working his way into the fight, which he certainly didn't in the first round. So he's probably feeling quite content at the moment.
Well, there he is then, the old warhorse himself. Tom Johnson has been a pro now since 1986. An awful long time to be in the professional ranks. And a bit of replay here from round 2 with Harrison taking the fight.
He's actually kept himself in great condition when you think of how long he's been fighting and the fights he's had.
And it must be the love and the glory, because it can't be the money, Kevin. He had all those title fights.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought so. I think he really does love boxing, and he's got a tremendous sort of, well, not ego, but a pride that makes him want to carry on and show that he's still got enough there to take out some of these youngsters.
When you think he's had 16 title fights, world title fights of various different complexions, I mean, Johnson must be pretty financially well.
Well, you would hope so. If he if he isn't, then something's gone wrong down the line. But he had a great time and a great reign as a champion, and he showed at that level for a long time that he was the best. There was no two ways about it. And retained his title, 11 times, I think it was. So he's been a great champion. It's doubtful that he can ever recapture that, but as I say, I think he wants to show that there's still life in the old dog yet. Absolutely.
Decent little right cross there from Harrison. Of course, previously in this round, actually Harrison might have found the combination that's going to do it for him. He landed a lovely double jab, which is a punch that I love to see more often. It's a very effective punch.
It's the sort of punch as well that Scott practices over and over in the gym with his dad, and he's very comfortable with throwing those shots. He's not afraid to do it like some fighters are. I think it's almost a natural thing with him, and he's quite comfortable doing it. He doesn't worry about it.
That's right. Good fight winner, double jab. And it's interesting how the fortunes of both men have swayed ever so much so far in this fight. Although we're only in round 3, good start for Harrison. Johnson came back and probably took the second, and then suddenly Harrison once again has shown he's got another gear by taking the fight to Johnson.
Yep.
And doing very well at the start here of the third round.
Yeah, I think the one thing that Harrison always seems to have is accuracy, and he clicks into that accuracy very early on, and that's what he's done again this time. And although he had a slightly indifferent round last round, this one I think he's coming out again, and you'll see he's putting some good shots together to head and body and scoring well with them, I think. Well,
this is the acid test really, I think, for Harrison. If he can keep the pressure on Johnson and hurt him, although he's not a puncher. If he can hurt him as best as he can, and that, you know, we'll see Johnson begin to unravel, I think, ever so slowly.
Yeah, I think he's got to work him. He's really got to work him right through the rounds. And Scott Harrison is fit enough to do that. He's not one of these fighters who needs to take a break. He can keep that momentum going. And I think if he manages to establish that, then Johnson could find it hard to stay with him.
So less than 30 seconds to go then in round 3, and already a good round this so far for the Scotsman, who hails from Glasgow, of course. And they've got a very proud tradition, of course, of the lighter weights in Scotland, haven't they? The flyweights, the bantams, and of course the feathers. But the super featherweight division, fairly new, I think, to successful Scottish fighters.
Yeah, it is. But I think that, you know, they've got a passion for boxing still in Scotland, and I don't see any reason why Harrison shouldn't go on and become a real hero after.
So good round then for Scott Harrison, winning that one pretty comfortably, we do believe, and so has won 2 of the first 3. There's our referee Paul Thomas, who, by the way, doesn't dye his hair, or so he tells me.
Neither did President Reagan.
Good point. Anyway, here you are, once again, scenes of the London Arena, and filling up nicely now. And Denny Mancini there, not Mick Williamson, Denny Mancini, in fact, working in the corner as the cuts man with Scott Harrison. And Denny, of course, also a very capable cuts man. Just looking at Tom Johnson's face here as we come out for round 4, he looks reasonably indifferent, doesn't he?
He does. He seems as though he's comfortable with the fight, but at the same time he's not doing enough in there to start winning it yet. So he needs to sort of step up a gear, if he's still got that gear to step up to.
Into the 4th then, and Scott Harrison, we believe, has moved 1 round in front now as we come to the 4th session of a scheduled 12. And that double jab and the right cross, and of course we saw a couple of sweeping left hooks as well from Scott in round 3, and it was a pretty poor round really for Johnson, wasn't it? It
was. He didn't really land with very much. I mean, he threw punches, but he wasn't getting through, and he wasn't landing on Harrison, and Harrison was picking his punches well and scoring.
Yep, like that, lovely left-right. And as far as boxing skill goes, I mean, you'll not find too many sweeter in this country, will you?
No, I think he's a good boxer. He's a very neat and tidy boxer. He doesn't waste too many punches, and he's got a very good defence, really. Having said that, it's probably tempting fate.
Yes, they say, of course, the last thing to desert a fighter is his power. But, of course, that power must, you know, there's other factors that produce that chilling power, and one of them, of course, is timing and reflexes. And since they have been severely eroded on these older fighters, you know, the power's just not going to be there, Kev, is it?
No, certainly not in the same fashion as it used to be in their heyday. And I think Harrison is respectful enough of somebody like Johnson and of his record to know that he can't go and take chances and take risks. It was the same in his last fight with Patterson. You know, both fighters, Patterson and Johnson, have had great careers, and Harrison realises that, and he's not about to take anything lightly.
So a case then possibly of good cherry picking.
I think so. I think he's a smart boxer, and if he keeps to his game plan and doesn't allow Johnson any room or any kind of openings, then, you know, he should run out the winner.
And not a great deal of credibility attached to the Intercontinental Championships, and particularly I would also suggest, without trying to sound too rude about it, the IBO Intercontinental title is not worth a great deal, Kevin, but what we've got to say, you know, is a springboard, of course, for something more meaningful.
Yeah, it's a springboard, and it also depends on the fights that are put at that particular weight and that title. I mean, you know, 2 fighters fighting for this title with 2 different fighters, you could say it lacks credibility. I think this one has credibility because we know Harrison is up and coming and a good fighter, and we don't have to say anything about Johnson. He's seen it, done it, and been there, and you know, has been a great champion. So he's lent a lot of credibility to this particular title, I think, by fighting for it.
Indeed. So Johnson has tried to get back on equal terms in this 4th round, but it's been a pretty good session so far for Scott Harrison by the look of things. He's decided now not to let Johnson get into the fight, not to try and boss him about. And it's a pretty smart fight so far being fought by Harrison.
Yeah, it is quite smart. And whenever Johnson has tried, he's tried a few occasions to go to the body, and Scott's just blocked him with his elbows, so he's not really getting through too much at all.
So 3 out of 4 then in favour of the Scotsman. Well, there's Spencer Oliver, the another former champion, European champion in fact, who suffered a brain injury. Let's not beat about the bush. He suffered and made a remarkable recovery.
He did make a remarkable recovery, and it's great to see something like that happening. And it's also nice to see him now because he's doing a great job as a TV commentator and as a trainer. Got a lot of enthusiasm for the game, and I think he passes that on to any fighters he's involved with.
So, timekeeper Peter McCann, who lives in Northwood, brings us out for round 5. And this, I would suggest, is a fairly crucial point. One of those first crucial points in the fight, Kevin, really, where, you know, Harrison has just won 2 consecutive rounds, and if he puts this one together now and walks away with this one as well, things will look very difficult for Johnson.
Yeah, if he puts 3 together, Scott Harrison, then he's obviously going to grow in confidence. He's going to feel that the fight's going his way. By the same token, Johnson is going to start looking at having a mountain to climb, and because of his age, you know, he may start getting anxious. He may want to try and finish it earlier than he may have wanted to earlier because he sees the fight running away from him.
Well, Harrison prepared to stand and trade now with Tom Johnson, feeling that maybe Johnson can't hurt him sufficiently. And don't forget that Johnson's previous weight, World Championship weight, was in fact in the featherweight division, which was, you know, almost half a stone lighter than this.
Johnson, I mean, I think he's struggling at the moment to actually get himself together. He's tried a few things, they just haven't worked. So he's got to try and break Scott up. He's got to try and break Scott's rhythm up. And it's the question of whether he's got the timing, the sharpness, the ability still to do that. I mean, we know there's no question in his heyday this would have been a very different Johnson.
Yes, I'll go along with that. Of course, one slight worry for me, regardless of how light Johnson's punches look at this point, they're probably not, because one thing I've always noticed about men who go on to championship level is the fact that they hit you so hard for their particular size, and it seems quite incredible the amount of power they possess, and I'm sure Johnson's no exception. And I just wonder about Harrison, who has looked a bit fragile around the face in the past, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has, and he can mark up. But I think he's not allowing as much of a target for Johnson to do that at the moment. It could change. I mean, one decent punch from Johnson gets through and things can start to change. But at the moment, he's looking pretty good defensively.
Yes, that's right. And Johnson having a good go here, but it looks like Scott's just a punch in front all the time. And punches like that long left jab of his, easy for the judges to see, easy for them to score.
But at the moment, he's almost waiting for Johnson's punches. He's catching them on his gloves, and then he's raking out that jab and scoring with it.
And Johnson so far unable to ruffle the feathers of the champion. Good round again for Harris, doesn't it?
It is a good round, and I think you know, Johnson is really trying very hard here, and you can see the shots he's throwing, the shots he's thrown all his life, but they're just not having the same effect.
Right, well, 49-46 then for us, 4 out of 5 so far for the young Scotsman, 22 years of age, remember, 14 years the younger of these two men, and a bit of head shaking in that Johnson corner, and you just wonder, don't you, just how they feel about this.
Well, I think they've got to break Scott up in some way or other. They've got to get him out of his rhythm. They've got to make him start to think defensively. At the moment, he feels quite happy. It's his fight. He looks comfortable in there, and he's enjoying himself. And I don't think the same can be said of Johnson at the moment. He's not uncomfortable, but he really isn't getting anything together.
And we'll watch that face as the fight progresses. Because he's not looking anything like as happy as he was after the first or second round. So the pressure's beginning to tell now on Johnson. And another good round for Harrison here might just about seal his fate. Harrison's anticipation of Johnson's moves looks to be spot on, doesn't it?
It does at the moment. I mean, he's catching, as I said, he's catching everything on his gloves or on his arms. He's not really allowing Johnson to get inside in any way, shape or form, so he can't really do too much damage. And then Scott is trying to pick him off as he is there, or just try to there. You'll notice Johnson maybe throws 2 or 3 punches, gets them caught by Scott's arms, and then Scott's there with 1 or 2 jabs. The thing that Harrison doesn't want to do is to get overconfident. And I think he's sensible enough and he's got his feet on the ground.
Yes,
I don't think he's that sort of fighter. But
I think his father's the kind of man to make sure he doesn't get carried away here. And what a great, you know, a great achievement to have the likes of Tracy Harris-Patterson and Tom Johnson on the loss column on your own record. Wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, we know they're not the fighters they were, but it's still tremendous names to have on your record. And they're great learning fights. He'll learn things from Johnson, and as he did from Patterson, that he would never have got from other people or contemporaries that he could easily have knocked over.
Absolutely. Good shot right then from Harrison, and once again, a look of consternation crosses the face of the former IBF featherweight champion. Not enjoying this so far, most of it one-way traffic, and as Kevin has said, those punches coming back from Johnson rarely seem to land on the target.
I think Johnson is feeling the effect, or his face is beginning to feel the effect. There's a lot of grease on there, and I think as the fight's progressing, although he's not looking very happy with it, I think his face is telling a bit of a tale as well. So.
Well, a couple of body shots there from Johnson, but it's not the Johnson of old who would have landed 4 or 5, then come and switched up to the uppercut on the inside. But let's not take anything away from Scott Harrison. He's obviously done his homework on Johnson, and he's honed himself to perfection here.
Yeah, I think he would have studied. I mean, I'm sure Johnson was probably one of his heroes, and he would have studied Johnson. He knows all about him. He knows the type of fighter he was and is. So he's not going to take any undue risks, I don't think.
Good punch. Good left hook then from Harrison. Of course, this is the first defence of this IBO Intercontinental title for him. And the IBO, of course, started by Mr. Ed Levine, who's also at ringside and responsible for more than one organisation in his time, Kevin, isn't he?
He has been. I think he's been around the organisations, but...
like the WBO and... I think WBU as well he was involved with originally. And the thing about Ed Levine, he wakes up in the morning with 3 initials on his mind, gets up and decides to start a ruling body. And there's probably been another one started whilst we've just been talking about
You never
that.
know, there could well have been.
Yeah. Well, once again, Evelyn Nelson, Mick Williamson. In fact, it's Denny Mancini, not Mick Williamson, in the corner there with Harrison on the right-hand side.
Mick Williamson's actually sitting at ringside.
Yes.
So.
There it is. That's the Al French and Al Gavin, of course, the main 2 men trying to give Johnson some advice. And, well, looks slightly sorry for himself at this point, doesn't he?
I think it must be terribly frustrating as much as anything else, because he knows what he should be doing, and he just isn't able to do it at the moment.
Halfway point then. 6 gone, 6 to go. And so far, it does look like Scott Harrison's won 5 of the first 6. We thought the second round probably went to the former IBF featherweight champion. So a 4-point gap then. Oh, double left hook from Johnson. Well, maybe they've said to him, Tom, you've got to start warming up now.
Well,
start going to work, because this is going to run away from you.
He's got a lot of work on his hands to get back into the fight, I think, anyway. So he's got to try and step up his work, but can he do it? Harrison's very fit. We know he can last these rounds and can go 12 rounds, no real problem. We don't really know about Johnson at the moment, whether some way along this fight, it's all going to catch up with him.
That's right. And of course, what with half the fight to go and half the fight gone, Johnson needs to win all of the rounds, including this one, to become champion, and that looks very unlikely.
It does at the moment, because you just can't see the way he's going to turn the tide. Unless it's, a bolt out of the blue where one of those punches actually get the snap in them that they used to have, and causes Harrison problems. But you can't really see it at the moment.
Of course, it's always been said that those fighters that show an awful lot of durability tend not to punch too hard, which is probably Harrison. But equally, you know, Johnson probably won't be able to hurt him, I don't think, at this stage of his career, will he?
No, well, I think as long as Harrison keeps his defence as tight as it's been so far, he shouldn't have a problem. But with somebody like Johnson, you never know. You know, he may sneak one through, and then you'd have to find out whether Harrison has got that kind of resistance. But he's always struck me as the sort of fighter who doesn't let too much through. So you don't really get to see him take very heavy bombardment. It's the pace of the fight as well. It's suiting Harrison. There's no problem with it. And I'm not sure Johnson can up the pace to change it.
Well, it sounds very much like they've sent him out here to have a big round, and he's certainly having that at the moment. Takes a lovely right though from Harrison. And now Scott Harrison forced to dig deep and respond, and does well. Well, this is the kind of answer we were looking for, Kevin, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he took a couple of shots from Johnson there, but he immediately came back with good ones of his own, just to remind him who's in charge at the moment. And it would have been a bit of a painful reminder, I think, for Johnson.
And it's an awfully lonely place out there. If you've never boxed and the pressure begins to mount, it's the loneliest place on this planet to be in a boxing ring, because it doesn't matter how many people have bought tickets to see you, it doesn't matter how much expertise there is in the corner. When the bell goes, it's just you and him. And I think Johnson's beginning to accept that. A little push on the bell. Would you call that an even round, Kevin?
I don't think it was as tidy for Harrison as the others have been, so quite possibly, you know, that could be an even. I think it got a bit ragged, mainly because Johnson, as you said, upped his pace and tried to do something. I don't think he was that successful, but it still had the effect of taking Harrison out of his sort of comfortable stride.
Right, here we go. They've been a replay here. Lovely right cross there from Scott Harrison. And that's it again from the reverse angle. Johnson took it well, to his credit.
He did take it well, but, you know, they're good scoring punches, and Scott manages to do that quite often. He's very accurate. And Johnson, to be fair, isn't actually defending himself particularly well at the moment. He looks a bit ragged. He looks as though he desperately wants to do something. And because of that, he's leaving himself open on occasions.
Into the 8th round then of a match that we fully anticipate to go 12. Unless, of course, Johnson decides, hey, I've had enough of this. I'm a mile behind. But having said that, you know, he probably fought on level terms against Harrison in round 7. And here we are in the 8th round, and he's not without a chance.
No, he's not without a chance. I hope he's got that boom left in his locker. But, you know, the longer the fight goes on and the more you see the way he's fighting, you wonder if he really has. This is a bit more open, and I don't think Harrison really needs it to be this open.
And Harrison's got to remain very focused, as once again a 3-shot combination comes in from Johnson. And really, this is a fight that Harrison can win behind his left hand. But as you can see now, Johnson beginning to buzz a bit here in the 8th.
He's putting a lot into this round, Johnson. He needs some results at the end of it, because it could take a lot out of it.
Takes a nice left hook again from Harrison, but some good work now coming in here from Tom Johnson. Not so much boom about him anymore.
No. At least he's backing Harrison up, which he wasn't doing in the earlier part of the fight, so he's giving Scott something to think about.
Do you think it may be possible he's taken half the fight to get warmed up?
Well, it's possible, but it's obviously not a position he wanted to be in, and I'm not sure he's got enough there to turn it, because he needs these rounds. He needs several of these rounds to turn it, and I'm not sure he could do that.
Well, nosebleed now for Harrison. Oh, good right hand from Scott. Both men exchanging good shots in this round, but at the moment it looks like it might actually belong to the American.
That right hand made Johnson stop and blink, though, didn't it?
Yes. Oh, and again, nice work from Johnson. Well, Harrison now looking not distressed necessarily, but slightly concerned at the power that Johnson's showing there.
He's beginning to get caught, Harrison, with shots that he wasn't getting caught with a few rounds ago. And I think part of it is his own doing. He seems to want to have a bit of a fight with Johnson, which is not really what I thought he should be doing.
Well, he's allowed Johnson now to take over and dominate this round. That's a big mistake for Harrison. As you just said, Kevin, he really needed to stay focused and stay in charge. Johnson's been allowed to come in and try and snatch this one away.
Johnson's got the sniff of a bit of success in this round. And he's old enough and experienced enough to want to build on that.
Well, it looks like he might have won that one. So 3 points, the gap now in favour of Harrison with 4 rounds to go. So still technically possible for Tom Johnson to win this one on points if he can win this last 4 rounds.
Yeah. The thing that Harrison still is maintaining is his ability to sort of catch Johnson with those jabs to the head. And Johnson still isn't getting out of the way of it. But what he is doing is now landing with some shots that he wasn't able to do before. So that's giving him encouragement, and it's making Harrison think again.
Well, we've got 4 rounds to go, 12 minutes of action to decide this one, and Scott Harrison, well, fundamentally made, well, not necessarily a mistake, but certainly a tactical error, we think, then, by allowing Johnson. Of course, nothing breeds success like success, and especially in this sport.
Yeah. Even the smallest amount of success in a round is something to go back to the corner with, and that's what you remember rather than the shots that didn't land.
That's right, and Johnson will probably come out and have a good round here, I imagine, and that might leave it down to the wire. There's no doubt about it that Johnson is behind, and he needs another big round here. Once again, trying to put Harrison under pressure. Scott needs to keep on moving and keep that left hand pumping.
I don't think Scott will want to mix it with Johnson in the way he did in the last round. I think he'll try and keep on the outside and pick those shots. He's ahead on points, you know, he might as well just try and build those points up in the next few rounds.
Double jab from Johnson. Haven't seen that too often from him. Used to be one of his pet punches, in fact. Yeah. Double jab, right cross. He was pretty famous for, but looking pretty good at the moment, Kevin, isn't he?
He is. He's also given himself a bit more space. He's not getting as close to Harrison as he was before, and so he's not getting picked off as much. And I think he's trying now to do what Harrison was doing to him, maybe, you know, nick points with jabs and just come in for the good shots rather than be there in his face all the time.
Yes, isn't it odd how suddenly the complexion of the fight is beginning to change before our very eyes? And I mean, you know, he's picked up the momentum. He's got the bit between his teeth, and off he's running. And it's going to be hard for Harrison to get back in psychologically as well as physically, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good test for him now. You know, he probably hasn't had this sort of test in his career before. It's not just a good fighter in front of him; it's the way the fight's turned. So he has to deal with that mentally, and he also has to deal with it physically.
Good point. Of course, this will separate the men from the boys if Harrison can come back from this good spell by Johnson and, of course, get himself back in a winning position. It augurs well for him, but well, as he starts to come back now, not for long. Good right. Here he comes now, showing a lot of character. That's good. Good stuff by Harrison. Probably saying to Johnson, right, you've had your spell, now it's my turn.
Yeah, there were some telling shots there from Harrison. He landed with good shots there, and he got himself back into it again. Some mark on his forehead.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's blood from his nose or possibly damage to Johnson. I don't think there's going to be a cut on the forehead like that, although it wouldn't surprise me in the least these days. No cut, so blood just being spread from either the nose of Johnson or indeed of Harrison. Kevin, how would you score the round? A great start for Johnson once again. Good finish, though, for Harrison. A level round, possibly?
Possibly a level round. I might even have given it to Harrison. I think Johnson started the way he wanted to, but he just didn't keep it up. And Harrison got back into it pretty much on level terms midway through the round, and then the shots that counted, I think, were Harrison's in that round.
Right, let's give it to Harrison. And a far cry, of course, from the downpour in Hampden Park a couple of weeks ago for Tyson Savarese. We're here in the London Arena. It's clean, it's dry, it's warm, it's nice. So a bit more replay here then from round 9. A lovely right hand there from Johnson, but he took one back. Took a cracker back from Harrison. So 3 to go then. Round 10 of the schedule 12. And things looking pretty good so far for Scott Harrison. We've got him, in fact, 4 points up at 88 to 84.
I don't think there's a question that Harrison's winning it. It just isn't as comfortable as it looked it could be at the beginning. And Johnson's done well, I think, in the middle rounds. So he's got back into the fight. He's given Harrison a lot more to think about. And he's left his mark there, whereas before it looked as though Harrison might just skate away with it on points.
Well, obviously Johnson hasn't come to make up the numbers. He's come to win this title, which he would have hoped would have set him on the road to something major, or at least slightly bigger. But of course, you know, if he doesn't beat Harrison here, I imagine Johnson will hang up his gloves, wouldn't he?
Well, I'd hope so, to be honest, but I'm not sure it will happen. You get the feeling with Johnson that he still feels there's something out there for him to achieve, and he still believes that he can do something. Perhaps a fight like this may actually tell him, no, it's not possible. But you never know. I mean, he's got enough pride and fighting instinct to maybe want to go on.
Always the last to know, aren't they?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Well, Johnson now on the run. Not prepared to stand and trade with the younger man. And let's be honest, who can blame him? He knows what he can take out there. And a bit of sustained attack, I think, from Harrison. And you can almost see Johnson begin to crumble, Kev.
Yeah, I think Harrison really wants to show now in these last rounds that he is in charge. That he's taken the best of Johnson. He's come back, he's weathered, you know, what storm there was, and he wants to finish it well.
When I was in France, by the way, the only draw on his record was a pretty poor one against one Stefan Fernandez. I was there on that occasion, and he looked very harshly treated. Seemed to have won all but one of the rounds, in fact, and they made it a draw, which was a real hometown decision, a real shame for him. And the only loss was on a cut against the Welshman Miguel Matthews.
Yeah. Well, I think Scott's has put that kind of, well, that defeat behind. I don't think he ever really saw it as a defeat anyway.
So good solid work then. Half a minute to go in the 10th round, and Harrison has boxed very intelligently at times in this one. There have been occasions when he's been slightly worrying to look at, but by and large he's pulled himself back up. That corner have managed to rouse him once more, and
Johnson's given him things to think about, and possibly things he hasn't had to think about in other fights.
And he's solved them all, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's done what's been asked of him so far.
Well, big round there, big round for Harrison. Won that very, very comfortably. Now 6 points in front as far as our scores are concerned. Al Gavin, the Cutsman, has not had a great deal to do out there. Al, of course, the older guy with the grey hair and glasses, a very experienced man to have in your corner.
It must be a good corner to go back to. Very experienced,
Yeah.
Good people there.
Absolutely right. Well, he looks pretty comfortable at the moment.
Yeah, he does.
And as you said before, Kevin, nice people, nice family, pleasure to talk to, no bad words to say about anybody,
No.
not flash, not brash, just good pros.
Yeah, they are. Very good, honest pros. There's a sort of steely determination there, I think, with Scott and his dad. That's a good gym up there.
Absolutely. Penultimate round then here. the 11th of a scheduled 12, and well, Johnson looked pretty tired. And we're long past the point where Tom Johnson needed a knockout to win this one, and he still does. Johnson trying to come back to the left hook.
One thing I will say is that Johnson's work rate has been pretty good in the last few rounds, and that possibly could have earned him some points from the judges. It often happens, even if they haven't actually been as effective as us.
Agreed, yes. I've got a feeling that Harrison's actually come through short spells of pain in this one. Of course, you'd never know because fighters are the last men to show it, but I'm pretty sure that Johnson would have whacked him, pretty hard on more than one occasion.
Yeah, I'm sure he's probably experienced shots and types of shots and power of shots that he maybe hasn't had before, but he's dealt with it so far.
And again, comes back nicely. Lovely couple of punches there, just to remind Tom Johnson there's two men in this ring. In fact, there's three men in the ring, but at the moment we're only getting hit by one of them. Referee Paul Thomas will not score this one. It'll be done by three judges who work independently outside the ring. Are you amazed, Kevin, these days about how much dissent there seems to be amongst three judges all watching the same fight?
Yeah, I mean, it still is puzzling. It's a very subjective thing, as we know, scoring a fight. But sometimes the scoring of judges can be absolutely puzzling, and particularly so for the fighters. Fighters, by and large, know whether they've been beaten by a wide margin or not. And when it's not the case, it must be terribly frustrating for them.
That's right. Well, a bit of a warning there to Harrison from referee Thomas. He once again pushed Johnson with his shoulder. Oh, good right hand. Well, that's the perfect answer. Oh, good shot. Lovely left hook then from Harrison. And I tell you what, oh, beautiful. He would trade half of his skills to have twice the punch, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I'm sure he would.
Good round again for Harrison, although let's face it, the sun is setting on Tom Johnson's career, but he brought out a couple of reasonable shots in that round, didn't he?
He did. Johnson's always there to remind him, it's not going to be an easy fight. I don't think it was ever going to be an easy fight for Harrison. It's going to be a learning fight, and that's what I think he's done so far. He's learned through the fight.
Yes, good point. So a very educational 11 rounds under the belt of Scott Harrison, the IBO Intercontinental Champion. For what it's worth, of course, it means a great deal to both these men, which is, of course, why they're contesting it so hotly. And it may mean something more major down the road, of course. There's that lovely uppercut. In fact, the only uppercut in the fight so far, if I remember rightly.
It is. It's surprising, really, because Johnson has bent low on several occasions, and he's ready for an uppercut.
Here we go then for the final round. This is the 12th. It's all sealed, signed and delivered as far as we're concerned, with Harrison enjoying a 7-point lead at this stage, 99 to 92. But of course, as we both just alluded, sometimes you do get anomalies in the judges' scorecards that no one on this earth can explain. I can't see that happening, Kev, can you?
No, I can't see it happening. I think what possibly might happen is that Johnson's aggression may have given him a couple of rounds that possibly we haven't. But I think all the accurate work's been done by Harrison. I have to hand it to Johnson that he is still there, he is fit. He's still trying to be the aggressor, he's still trying to, take the title.
But every time he tries to involve Harrison in trench warfare, he seems to come out second best, doesn't he?
Yeah, he just can't get it together in the way that he used to. And he's, as you said, he has to wonder now if he loses this, well, because he looks as though he will lose this, is it time to hang the gloves up? Because really, what is there out there for him?
That's right. Grandstand finish now from these two. Johnson started it, but Harrison's going to finish it. Again, look at this fitness. It's incredible, really, especially for Harrison, you know, to be this fit, to throw these kinds of punches at this point in the fight. You know, you've got to really grit your teeth and dig down deep.
Yeah. I think Harrison has said that he sort of prides himself in the fact that he feels he can throw the same sort of punches in the last round as he does in the first, in terms of being fit enough to do that. And he's proven it at the moment.
Wonderful gift, isn't it, to be that fit?
Yeah. A lot of hard work.
So less than a minute to go then. And it looks like Harrison's going to leave the ring as he came in as champion. And quite possibly we'll hear a retirement announcement from Johnson. But as Kevin has said, you know, he's still got something to offer, even if it's as a stepping stone for younger fighters.
He may have also drawn some sort of encouragement from this particular fight, because he is fighting a young man, and he has stayed in there. He's done certain things that he probably looks as though he couldn't at the beginning of the fight, and he is doing it still in the last round. So maybe he's getting some encouragement from this. Well, Harrison's...
Well, was that a push? Yes, it was. Well, it's all over now, bar the shouting, and that was a very impressive win, surely, for Scott Harrison.
Yeah, I think there was a look of recognition in Johnson's eyes there. He's a good pro, and he knew exactly what was coming to him at the end of that round, I think. Well, what will be coming to him.
Yeah. Well, we've got that 118 to 111 in favour of the champion. And I will be amazed if that's any different on the judges' scorecards, although, as Kevin has said, you know, that he may have been rewarded for a bit of aggression in some rounds where we didn't think he'd won them, but was certainly more aggressive. But 118, 111 looks a fair reflection of the action we saw.
I think so. I think it tells a tale that, you know, overall Harrison was in command. He'd lost it slightly in the middle rounds.
Yes.
To Johnson's credit, he made him go back, but he recovered well. And he showed that he has got very neat, accurate boxing skills.
That's right, round 7 and 8, in fact. We gave, round 7 and 8, we gave Johnson a share of the 7th, and we gave him the 8th, and then all of a sudden Harrison rallied himself once more and got back into things and managed to stay in control. Yeah,
he re-established himself. The good thing for Harrison's point of view is that he didn't lose control. He didn't go out there and try to match Johnson. He went back to his boxing.
That's right, good thinking fight from the champion.
Yes, yeah, he'll only benefit from it.
Right, the official verdict is coming up then with our MC, Mr. Michael Buffer, who's been flown over especially for this, of course.
Ladies and gentlemen, we go to the scorecards. Terry O'Connor scores about 117 to 113. Roy Francis has it 119 to 111. And Michael Pernick scores it 119 to 109. All for the winner by unanimous decision. And still, the reigning IBO Intercontinental Featherweight Champion, Scott Harrison.
Well, the judges had Harrison winning by respectively 4 rounds, 8 rounds, and 10 rounds. And you know, we had him winning by 7 rounds. So you know, we're all talking the same language, aren't we?
Yeah, it's the same trend. I think we're a bit more charitable than they were, really.
A round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen, for the former world.
I think Johnson was slightly upset with the margin. You know, it must be embarrassing for him, when you think of his past glories, to walk out the ring tonight, having lost by that wider margin.
Yes, and he's still very upset by that. And Mike Katz, I'm not sure if he's the New York Daily News writer, Mike
Presenting
Katz,
the belt to the still
very
reigning
visible
champion at this
character
time from
inside,
Scotland,
sympathising with Johnson as he goes. But there's no doubt in my mind, or Kevin's mind, about the winner. Okay, maybe you can argue about the margin, but that's about it.